Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Anne Welsh. Once again, I thank you all for continuing to support the Painless Universal Conversation. Today's conversation is focused on what can parents positively do to influence their children. We've seen the pandemic has caused so many people being anxious. A lot of reports out there saying more kids are more stressed out. We want to understand what can parents positively do to help kids going through this difficult time. My guest, Tin Shoemaker, will be telling us about his own journey, his work, and how he's helping so many kids to find their joy. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about him. Tim Shoemaker is the author of 17 books and is a public speaker at conferences and schools around the world, especially the United States. Over 25 years working with youth has helped him relate to his reading and listening audience in a unique way. His book, called The Silence, was named in the top 10 crime novel for youth by Booklist. Currently, he's working on more of the very best, hands-on, kind of dangerous family devotion. A sequence designed to help parents teach truth to their kids in a way that they will never forget. He's also writing a 5-book series targeting primarily 12 to 14 years old. Escape the Avenger Evergrade. The first book in the Ever Hidden Things come out this September 2022. Our guest loves writing. Tim loves writing. He loves writing about mystery, adventure, suspense, and it's clear and powerful and definitely Christian fiction. It's all about helping kids grow to be men and women of character and about encouraging the parents who loves them more. I'm super excited about this conversation, and I hope by listening to this conversation, not only would you know more about Tim and his work, you also better understand how to help your kids in this difficult time of the post-pandemic, because I don't know if we're still in time of this pandemic. How can we help our kids to find their joy again? It's so important that we help these our wonderful kids so they could be better kids to society. Meet my amazing guest, Tim Shoemaker, as he shares his story. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Anne Welsh, as I said in my introduction. Guys, this conversation is for you kids out there, for parents. Are you looking for the right way to bring up your kids in today's world, especially after the pandemic? This has left so many parents wondering what is right and what is wrong. How do we go about to bring back up our kids in a nice way? My guest, as I said again in my introduction, Tim, he'll be talking about his own journey, what led him on his path. Before we get started into any of his journey, I'm going to ask him a vital question, which is something I really enjoyed. Tim, welcome to the show. It's really honored to have you. How are you?
Good, and I'm glad to be here.
I am so glad. I'm really honored to have you here because when anyone reads your work, especially with everything going on in today's world, people read your work, you are really out there. It says here, you're a Christian writer, you've written at least 20 books, you're a popular speaker, you speak at various events, at schools, university, corporate events, throughout the United States. And your mission, I think, is something that's really sat well with us, is that you are out there to help kids grow to be men and women of character and encouraging the parents who love them. Before we get started, Tim, who are you?
Well, I technically I'm a writer, a conference speaker, writing coach. Those are, I guess, are the titles that would have. But deep down, I'm a man who really wants to put God first in my life, and I'm super dedicated to family. So I've kind of got this burden. Also, I think for the next generation, whoever they are,
Yeah.
and and how they would grow up.
That's really amazing. I'm so glad that someone is taking on that burden. So the world knows that it's a kind world out there, that the people like you out there. And I'm really honored to have this conversation with someone like yourself. When you look at your background growing up, what was there in your background that led you on this path? Because are this person who's on a mission to really change the world. What was your background like growing up?
I think I had it pretty good growing up. I was in a nice balanced family, for sure. But um, you know, my dad, my grandpa, in fact, my grandpa on both sides, I really, really respected and admired them. They were just like, these men of integrity, and they were certainly men who followed God, and they were just great examples of what a strong marriage looks like, and how to be a man, to do even the hard things, uh, and even things that cost you personally, but it was a matter of doing the right thing. So those were some things that had a huge influence on me and where I was to go. And then there was some subtle things, and like I was kind of the monkey in the middle. I had two older sisters, and then there was me. And then 9 years later, my parents had my younger brother, and then a few years after that, one more brother. So I had a brother 9 years younger than me and 12 years younger than me. And so I ended up doing a lot of babysitting and stuff as they were getting older. And you know what? I think to some people, they would think, oh my goodness, little brothers, what a pain. But for me, I just found it was so much fun. And we had all these adventures together and lots of stitches and stuff like that. But it was, I think when I look back, that's where my love for youth and that caring about the next ones coming behind, that's where it really started. I just had so much fun with my brothers. Yeah.
Tim, you were very much about the Christian faith, and this is such an important part of your life. Where did that stem from? Was it always a part of your life growing up? Did you go to Sunday schools? Did you take part in the choir, church choir? Where did that love for Christianity really come from?
Well, yeah, I grew up, going to church and Sunday school for sure. Not choir. My wife would laugh at that because my singing voice just ain't that great. So, uh, but certainly, was growing up in the church. But again, these people in my life that I admired and respected, my dad, my mom, my grandma and grandpas, they were ones that followed God and were striving to live according to the principles from his word. And I just saw the value in that and how good that was. And really how good life was for me because they were really working at that. And I thought, that's the path for me. That's the path I want to go on. And then, of course, you've got to make that personal. It can't be just, you know, I'm following what my parents did. You want to have that personal relationship with God, but um, there was kind of that increasing dedication as I'm, getting older, and certainly in high school, that was a key time where uh, you really are making decisions and saying, "Yeah, I want this personally. That's where I want to go." And there's this great verse in the Bible, Ephesians 2:10, that talks about God preparing things for us to do, and and that concept just really, boggles my mind. Imagine that God would prepare things that he wants me to do. So you see that great purpose in your life. And I want to be that guy that, um, actually did those things that I was created to do. So those were all things that were important in forming who I was.
I like that. I love what you just said, Tim, that God creates purpose for us, because a lot of times I think where we find ourselves wandering, where we find ourselves lost, is that we're always trying to think ahead, not realizing that God has created this pathway for us, but we just have to believe and trust in Him to be able to find that path. And you utilize this saying, and that's guided you to be on try to always find that purpose, because God has given it to us, and you've always utilized that. And I love that about what, this the beauty of Christianity, which a lot of people try to miss out on, is that joy Christianity gives, and that love of helping and serving others. So when you think of that journey, that journey that made you now, okay, God is now, there's a voice in me saying, I need to embark on my mission of helping others, especially kids, become a good character. What was it that you wanted to, because I know my own calling, and I know I want to take that calling bigger. Could you just describe your calling when you identified that there was a need and there's a gap in the younger generation?
I think it started out when I was young, again with my little brothers, just having that love for those that are younger, and then when I was in my college age years, you mentioned Sunday school before. There were some they needed some help with the fifth and sixth grade boys, and most people, they would like run from that. That's like, oh my goodness, that's got to be the worst group to teach, and so there was an opening there, and I thought, I should give back. This would be maybe this would be good. Well, I tell you what, I enjoyed it so much. And so on Sunday mornings, especially when the weather was good, we wouldn't just sit in the classroom and put our chairs in a circle or something. There was this great tree right out on the side of the church. It was great for climbing. So we'd go out there, have the boys climb up in the tree, and I just stand below them and I'd give the lesson there. And I mean, I had a captive audience, right? They were, but they loved it, so they could climb the tree and we could talk. And we had an old school bus at the church, they could use for youth retreats and such. And on the top of that, there was this great big rack, with railings on it, right? And so we'd climb up that ladder and we'd sit up there and just, lounge in that, and the roof of this bus, and talk. And so it was great being able to talk about, sure, Bible stories, but how that relates to life. And it
Mm.
always so relevant that way. So yeah, so we had fun with that. So that was one thing. And when my wife and I got married, she was helping, liked working with kids too, and we decided, we should be doing it together, you know. And so we got involved with the high school youth group, and as volunteers, and right away after we got married, and of course we're still working with high schoolers now, but it was a fantastic thing, and but yet seeing so many needs, so many kids were hurting. um, you know, Maybe they're not feeling heard or something at home, or, they've got questions. And one of the things we've always been is, you can always ask us anything. And we're
Mm.
going to tell you the truth, because there's so much out there, Ian, that we feel like people are not telling the truth. They're maybe they've got an agenda or something, but they're not really giving the kids all the facts to
Mm.
make a decision. And I think if they've got, the facts, they'll make better decisions, and we can trust them with that.
I think this is why God put you in that position. In your experience, when you think about, everything you've seen, and you've working, when you started volunteering with kids, how can parents help their kids grow up to be of good character? Because this is a difficult thing to do today.
Really, really hard. You're right. One of the one of the best pieces of advice I got early in our marriage was this. And I hate to say it, he was this older guy, right? And I, I'm young, married, and you're not really thinking they're going to have much to give.
To add to you.
Right. So I mean, so that's just a moment of honesty there. But so he said to me, he said, if you want to be a good if you want to be a good dad, love your wife. And, I thought about that so much over the years. If you want to be a good parent, love your spouse. And I found that that was like the best advice, because one of the things that if we want to create good character in our kids, the better I am at loving my spouse, loving their mom, well, that brings stability to the home.
Mm.
It makes a safe home. The kids are more balanced. The home has got less stress in it, and home becomes this this haven, and it just lends itself to being more open, and kids being able to talk when parents are real and honest and vulnerable, I guess. And then and so that became a thing, and where we just always worked on that marriage. There's this verse in the Bible that talks about don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And we took that very literally, where, if we're having some sort of a, disagreement about something, we got to work this out. We're not going to go to bed and be upset with each other. So, it's not holding grudges, not keeping that list of wrongs, those classic things that we know love is all about. And so, really loving um, my wife is the first start if I really want to influence them. And see, it's so important because if I don't love my spouse the way I should, if I'm not living the way I should, I'm going to lose my kids' respect. And here's the thing: is that as the kids get older, they see these disconnects. Like, let's say, for example, as a parent, I'm saying, hey, kids, you should be living this way and this way, and talking about integrity and, being honest and responsible and all these great character traits. If I'm saying that's important, but then I'm sloppy with how I live it out at home, maybe I'm crabby, or I've had a hard day or whatever. If I'm sloppy, there's a disconnect. And the kids they see that disconnect, and they're going to lose respect. And it can go actually worse than that, but we'll just keep it at the respect at this point. And when they lose respect, that breeds rebellion. It's really hard to rebel against somebody you respect. It's almost impossible. And so when we're not losing their respect, the chance of them kicking back and rebelling against us goes way down. And that allows us to keep speaking into their life. Whereas otherwise, they're going to tune us out because they've lost respect. And so we can influence them in those areas of character.
Yeah. That's truly amazing. That is honestly, that's truly phenomenal. But it is something we tend to not think about. That you think you, it's almost like I always say to people, the way you bring up yourself, the way you love yourself, is almost the same love that you could give others. But if you can't love yourself, it's actually very difficult to love someone else. And sometimes we don't even know the reason we hate other people is just because of the hate we put on ourselves. And once you start loving yourself and loving the people, the closest person to you, even others, even kids, get that love, and they just want that from you. They want to replicate what they see, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, when 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 a man and wife, for
Mm,
example, love each other um, in a way that is supportive, and that, here's the great thing. And I still see, you know, when I, am talking to my wife, I still see that admiration in her eyes. I
mm,
mean,
yeah.
anything for that, right? It's so key, and so you get that, and that's great. And why wouldn't our kids, as they're growing up, they see that? Why wouldn't they say, I want that kind of relationship. I want to be that kind of a person. And if mom and dad are working at being people of integrity and character, and in our case, loving and following God, why wouldn't they say that's what I want to do too?
Absolutely. This is unbelievable. You've been a volunteer, right, with youth leaders, for many, many years. When you look back and when you look at what are some of the important observations of the youth that you've seen has changed over time? Because you've been doing this for a long time. This is not something you just started yesterday. What has changed over time?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is more anxiety. More
Mm.
anxiety. We're hearing even the word. I'm anxious. I'm. Anxiety was something that 20 years ago that would be such a rare thing. It's so much more common now when you hear kids talking about their anxieties and their worries and fears. And um, I think another one is work ethics. We see more anxiety, less good work ethics than there were some years back. Um, One of the things my wife and I notice all the time, there's less commitment.
Mm.
Youth today seem to have less commitment. It's very hard to pin them down to a date to do something. It's almost like they're keeping the options open, in case something better comes along. Um, but to stick with something is hard for them. So I'm kind of doing less and mores. There's so many more broken homes than there were before, which has a lot of different, trickle down effect. Uh, Another thing that would be certainly less, 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 less trusting God. In fact, less fear of God. You remember when maybe you were a kid and you'd hear people talk about putting the fear of God in you, or something like that, that expression.
Yeah, I
Well,
know that expression. I'll put the fear of God in. Don't let me put the fear of God in you. Yes, I do realize. Remember that.
like there's such an absence of the fear of God. We just came through Easter, and I was kind of reading that account, on the cross again, and it was interesting where the one thief he talks about, that finally is turning. He's seeing, hey, there's something different about Jesus, and he says to the other thief, "Don't you fear God?" Because the guy was taunting and doing this. He's like, "Don't you fear God?" I mean, there's there was limits even to what a thief thought was proper because it came down to this fear of God. I'm seeing this with our youth, and really, in a world standpoint, certainly the United States has lost the fear of God,
Mm.
and they've made themselves their own gods, I think, and so this creates a lot of changes, and of course, so there's that. There's huge change. Social habits are so massively different because of screens, because of those phones, because of the computers. But the social habits, and I know that's, you know, nothing new. You've probably seen that all the time, but um, so many kids look to get their social life from their screen presence, and that is, primarily a facade, and it's not real. When you see kids in the same room, youth in the same room, but yet they're on their devices, and it's like it it still stuns me when I see it. When a room goes quiet with teenagers in there, it's not because they've left, it's because they're on their devices. That's crazy. So um the screens, it's where they find their entertainment. um
Mm.
they're not actually doing things, but they're getting entertainment. So in fact, I just took a scuba class because for some writing I wanted to make sure that the scenes were accurate and such. And it's been a long time since I'd been certified as a diver, so I thought, you know what, we're going to take a new class. And so I took that. But one of the things they said is they're not getting a lot of younger people doing that. They like watching things on YouTube, but they're watching other people do things and they're doing less themselves. And so there's uh, all these changes. And another one, this one here is
Wow.
is boggling to me. Do you remember growing up, probably how many times, Ann, you would ask, um, a parent or a teacher or something, how do I do this? Or how do I do, where do I get this?
Yeah.
Go to the library, ask a librarian, here's what I'm trying to find out. Where can you lead me? But we were going to that generation older than us asking questions. They don't do that much anymore. They just go to Google.
Yes.
They Google it, and or they can go to YouTube and find a how-to video. And so it's great. They can do a lot of things, but we're missing this entire element of mentoring. I mean,
Mm.
I used to be able to go to my dad, hey dad, I got to go to, whatever area. How do I get there? And oh, he, pull a scrap of paper and draw me a quick map, and it was like, dad knows. And there's this thing, dad knew what to do, mom knew what to do. And
Mm.
we went to them a lot. And the problem with doing the online thing is you're getting answers, but you're not always getting, you're missing the experience factor. You, wisdom. I mean, our kids are smart. Let's face it, our kids are smart. When I'm writing to youth, um, I'm thinking of them as smart as me or smarter. They're better with technology. They're better with math, right?
Yes.
But they they lack experience,
That's so true.
and with that experience comes wisdom. And so they don't have wisdom, and so they're going to make a lot of bad choices. They're smart, they make bad choices. And as you continue to go to answers from something with artificial intelligence or whatever, and you're missing that experience factor. And so that's another thing. I'm sorry, that was a long answer.
No, no, no. I mean, Tim, I have to really, I love the answer because it's not, it wasn't, so most of this was not things I would think about because it's things we tend to ignore now. And that leads my question onto the parent side because a lot of these things are happening because sometimes we, the parents, also letting it happen. We're the one buying these iPads, we're the ones letting them have these access to these things because we're too busy as well in our own little world. So as parents, what can we do to positively influence our children, especially during this time, to help them reconnect and regain that love of living again?
Okay, well, that's good. Well, first thing is you've got to make sure that you can keep speaking into their life, and so we don't want to lose their respect. Um, and that's a big one, Anne. We've got to be worthy of their respect, and for them listening to us. A lot of times, we wonder why our kids rebel in their teenage years, but often, in my opinion, is it's what's happening when they're 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12, and they're seeing the disconnects. They're seeing their heroes crumble before their eyes, and um, and that gets them angry, and they lash back later, and they punish. Um, I remember this is crazy sidetrack, but I think it was back in the 90s. When I was a kid, I grew up. I loved Superman, right? I mean, he was this ultimate hero. He could do all these great things. And then in the 1990s, someplace, I think the comic book creators they killed Superman, and somebody had mentioned, I was like, no way, what? You can't kill Superman. Come on. And I actually bought one of the comic books, and checked. I was like, they killed Superman. You can't do that. And it was ridiculous. Here I am, a grown man, mad at these writers for using such a cheap tactic to sell comic books. You don't kill a hero, but parents do that. You're your kid's hero, but it's later, I think, when they see the hypocrisies or the do as I say, not as I do type things, that you're killing their hero. That breeds anger, and that'll come out, but not always right away. It comes out when they've got a little bit more muscle behind them. So anyway, if you want to influence, don't lose the respect, and don't hand them everything. Oh my goodness, including college education. They need to they
No.
work. You know, even what do we prioritize as parents? There's so much prioritizing as like, you need to do really good in school so that you get into the right college, so that you get the right job, so that you make enough money, so that you'll be happy. That's that's like the unwritten formula that we know it doesn't work that way.
No.
Uh, Education's important, but it's not the most important thing in life because there's too many people that are very educated making very bad decisions in our world. And but yet we allow our kids to buy into that. I think um, we want to we want to teach them. We want to live life with them. Relax, loosen up a little bit. When the kids are little, let them make a fort in the house with the couch cushions and um, take them places, do things. Don't have them always so involved in organized sports. Yes, there's things that our kids can learn that are great from organized sports, right? But the problem is it takes so much of their time away from us influencing them. I really want a coach or teammates to have more time with my kids than I do. No, I don't. So I'll go out and play sports with them. We'll go do, things, whatever, but just different things like that. You mentioned, I think, like the phones and giving them a phone.
Yeah.
That gives a 5 minutes of elation,
Mm.
you know, their kids love them. Oh my goodness, thank you, mom, dad. This is great. I love it, love it. They got about 5 minutes of feeling good. And from then on, they're going to regret they gave them that smartphone, for the years to come. It's just not good for the kids in so many different ways. And
Yeah.
parents,
No. Keys. No, no, absolutely. I think this is some of the greatest pain we've given them by giving them access to things, phone, take away precious time that we should be spending on our kids today. You go around teaching around the United States. You've spoken in numerous places. I think more. I can't even know. I don't even know your numbers of how many places you've spoken to in schools and places, conferences, and you speak to kids. When you go out to talk, what are some of your favorite topics that you like to speak at?
I talk about in a huge, I think that's one of the big thing is that, when I'm writing fiction for youth, everybody likes a story about somebody who's faced with some choices. They're either going to be a hero or they're going to lose big, and they want them to be the hero. And deep down, kids want to be a hero. So I like talking to them about, what is a hero? It's not always just this one great big thing that somebody does. It's the little things, it's the daily things. And I want to show them how they can be a hero in everyday life.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, actually, it is true. Even when I watch a movie, the first thing I'm thinking about is if I'm thinking about the end of the movie, I'm thinking about, oh, who's going to be the hero and they have to survive and all that. Yeah, because it is, yeah, kids tend to love it. So does social media play a part in the stress that you see statistic? Kids are anxious. Kids are under more and more kids today are under stress. Do you think social media and access to phone has a huge part to play in this?
Yeah, I think it's tremendous. I don't know that we can even measure how much it is, but they're they're living with a constant comparison
Mm.
uh, with themselves and others. What are others doing? Who are others with? What should I be doing? It's all this comparison that's going on, and so much of it's so misleading, right? Because things out on social media, people are putting their best foot forward, or it may not even be remotely true, but it looks like they're prettier, they're more connected, they're more handsome, they're more fun than they really are, and so that adds all this stress, all this pressure on our kids to be more than they can be or that they should be, that they shouldn't have to worry about that. And it cuts into their sleep because they leave the phones, they have them in the room, they have them on all night. And, you know, they've got to answer these texts or respond to things that are going on through the night. So if they've got one person that's up late, that's on their social media, that they can keep others up late. So now they've got sleep deprivation and they're less capable of handling the stress of the next day. So it's this vicious circle. Yeah, so it's rough. It's rough.
Yes. I read your book. I read the synopsis of it, just the code of silence. And in your book, it brings to the forefront this terrible conflict about telling the truth versus targeting them about witnessing a serious crime, right? How is a fictional story relatable to today's story? And how should parents be teaching their kids on what to do in difficult circumstances and in situation they find themselves?
Okay, so here, interesting thing. Our world doesn't value truth like it used to. There used to be truth, and that was it. But now there's your truth and my truth, and not so absolute as it used to be. So that's a tough thing. So it's a topic that we need to kind of talk about. And so people are often untruthful, and why. Often it's to avoid something unpleasant or uncomfortable, or to avoid punishment or consequences, or maybe people aren't telling the truth, so because otherwise they don't think they'd get something that they really want to get with the truth. um, so there's all kinds of reasons why people aren't being truthful, but I think when mom and dad are truthful and they stress the importance of telling the truth, and even with their kids, look, you can tell us anything. We want to know. Um, I mean, you probably remember as a kid um, doing something wrong. Uh, and then, like I can remember like lying about it and not telling what I really did. And then when they find out, which they always did, they uncovered that I was in way more trouble for lying than I ever was for whatever I did wrong. And so as we, help our kids understand that, look, just tell us the truth. We want to know the truth. And parents are there to guide their kids and to help them through these times. And so we want to create that atmosphere where they can talk and not feel like they're not being listened to. If your kids are saying things like, um, you know, you never listen, or that type of things, they're not feeling heard, no matter how much we think we're listening to them. So I think, we start out being who we should be. We want to be truthful, and we want to also create that atmosphere where we can talk about anything with our kids, because we want them to come to us, because we're the ones that have the experience. We've got the wisdom, if I can put it that way, to help them do these things. I did this thing with, you know, it's a great thing to do with kids, especially if they hit junior high, teenage years. And I got some rat traps. You know what I'm talking about? They're like about this big. They're like giant mouse traps, and they've got spring kill bar on it. I mean, they're
Yes.
right.
Uh-huh.
You set some of these up like in a narrow hallway in your room, 6 or 8 of them, and then you have one of the kids come over at the one end of the hall and say, "Okay, shoes and socks off. All right, now I'm going to blindfold you, and I would like you to walk through this hallway, and you can't shuffle through. I want you to just step. I'm going to spin you around a couple of times too. Would you do that?" And of course, your kids aren't going to do that. There's like no way. Say, now, what if we did it different? What if we did the same thing, but dad puts his hands or mom puts his hands on your shoulders, and you put your hands on my arms. And even though you're blindfolded, I'm going to walk you through this hallway, and I'm going to keep you out of these traps. Would you trust me with that? And they would, generally speaking, and you can walk them through. This is a picture of my role as a parent. And I try to explain to them and talk to other parents, Try doing this with your kids, right? Just say, look, I know you want your freedom, you want your independence, you're a teenager. You're going to get it on the other end of this hallway. You won't have to ask for it. I'm going to give it to you. I just want to get you through. There's a lot of traps in this corridor. Mom and dad have been down this hallway before. We know where a lot of the traps are, and we're gonna bring you through, but you got to be honest with us. You got to open up. You got to tell us the truth. You got to talk to us about what's going on in your life. And our goal is we want to set you free, but we'd like you not to be a cripple when we do it. And there's things in this corridor that can cripple your life. So that type of thing would be something that, parents could do with their kids.
That is true. I love that. The way you make it so magical for the kids, and it brings it back to normality, because I think a lot of kids want to have this, but they just don't know what the normality is, what is normal, how do I know? I know my parents love me, but because they're so used to the social media and the other bits, they we don't know how to show them that, so they don't know what to trust. And this method of doing this just gives the kids that sense of, okay, I can relate when people say I could trust my parents to guide me in that direction. And then it also leads me to that question of that fiction and non-fiction, which is something you're very particular about in the way you tell your story in helping kids. You believe that the fiction method works better because it tells and you're able to convey the truth through the fiction method. Could you just give me an example and tell me a little bit about some of your story that led you on this path of the fiction method of telling stories?
Well, I write nonfiction and fiction, but
Mhm.
I notice when I'm writing nonfiction, I am trying to reason with the reader, and I'm trying to logic with that reader. Is I know they're going to process this, and what I'm hoping is that some of that reasoning or some of that logic, whatever I'm trying to convey through that nonfiction, resonates with them, and it goes from their head to their heart, and they adopt that, and that helps them in some way, right? So that's that process with nonfiction, but fiction is totally different. And if you're reading a story and you like this story, you like the characters, you're so absorbed, um, you're not taking it in through the logic center of your brain. You're taking it through your heart. It's an emotional thing. And so whatever it is, there's always with good fiction, there's some bit of truth, nugget of truth, some life lesson that's going to rise out of that. You won't have to worry about that life lesson, about your kids catching that life lesson when you convey it through fiction, because you don't have to get it from their head to their heart. It's already there. It's
Yeah.
that's how they've been taking it in, and so it's so powerful. Fiction is powerful. You can convey hope and help. You can convict kids about ways that maybe they're being a jerk through a story. Stories can make us brave. They can motivate us to action. They can protect us. They can cause us to think in ways we wouldn't have thought if the same principles had been given to us in a lecture or in a textbook, some nonfiction format. It's huge, and so that's changed how I write. But I guess an example, um, you know, you could read a news report about something going on. You get the facts, the statistics, and that's terrible.
Yeah.
And then you watch, a movie that's made about that situation, and you're like, how can I make a difference there? I need to do something to help these kids over there that are living this way or whatever it would be, because the story was coming in through your heart, and it's already reached you.
Okay, you've just released your Every Hidden Thing. I like that title, Every Hidden Thing. What is this book about?
Like the title too. And you know what? And you won't believe where it came from. There's a verse in the Bible,
Yeah.
and I'm going to read you that verse because I read it, and it's in the book of Ecclesiastes, which is like not many people go there, right? Uh,
Yes.
it says this, for God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. And I read that and I was like, oh, there's creepy truth in there. I mean, it just sounds good. There's a title in there.
Yes.
And uh, and so I kind of had written that down and set it aside. Uh, I read, for I don't know, 17 years or something, read through the Bible every year. And it's just amazing the things that you find. And, but I thought, oh, I'm going to use that for a title someday. And so that was this one. But yeah, there's this High Water series, it's called. In book one, we meet Parker Buckman. He's a National Park Ranger's son, and they're stationed in the Florida Everglades, which is a really creepy place. When I did research down there, oh my goodness, I was very fortunate to come back with all of these my hands. And so, uh, in the first chapter, he gets mauled by an alligator, and so Dad puts in for a transfer. We got to get out of here. We got to go to a different station, and so a big theme of that book is, this boy thinks life will be better if I can just get out of this place. And it's about escaping. But so many of our youth are there. If I can just escape this situation, if I had a different family, if I had a different situation, a different whatever, things would be better. But, in this case, Parker needed to face these things head on. He couldn't run from them. He had to face them. But in any case, so then in that second book, they're in that next place. They've made that move. And there's some strange things going on in town. In fact, there was a classmate who had drowned, and he's not so sure it was an accident. So he's concerned about that. There's a mysterious figure that's been stalking and breaking in some homes. And so, he's trying to figure this stuff out because it's affecting his family and his friends. And there's, this fact, he knows God sees all and he can reveal all, but God doesn't seem to be revealing a thing. And he's got to wait on God's timing on that a little bit. The mystery is like killing him, but learning the truth is going to turn deadly in its own way. So, mystery, adventure, suspense. I write especially for that junior high, that 12 to 14 or 15-year-old window. I mean, that is the sweet spot. So I write for them fiction, and generally the nonfiction is for the parents of those kids. So it's the strangest thing. Sometimes people say, "Well, man, you're writing for parents, you're writing for kids." No, it's all about the kids. It's all about the kids.
Yeah.
In order to help the kids, I'm writing some things for them, but I'm also writing to their parents because that'll make life better for the kids too. So, but anyway, yeah. So mystery, adventure, suspense. I love that kind of stuff.
And anyone who wants to get copies of these books, where do they go? Because we're based out here in United Kingdom, people around the world, where?
Yeah, just go to Amazon and they can look up my name, Tim Shoemaker, or certainly there was Code of Silence and Back Before Dark and Below the Surface and all these books. Yeah.
So Tim, how do you get the motivation to, writing is actually quite difficult, and you've written so many books. How do you maintain that discipline to keep writing?
Well, part of this is it might seem silly, but I try to make it fun. When I'm having fun, I think it shows up in the writing, and the writing will be a little bit better. So, so what is fun? I like going out to a location. So I made this desk that I can stand at. So it's just a couple of horses and a top to go on it. I can take it anywhere. Wow. So I'm outside a lot when the weather's nice, and I set up this desk and I can sit there, or not sit, I stand and write anywhere. I go to fast food restaurants a lot rather than a coffee shop. I'll go to a fast food place and then you can, get a little bit to snack on and just be writing and enjoying that. So, having fun. And I've got this old pickup truck.
Mhm.
Um, and whenever I get in this old, it's like it's 1950s, 1953. Whenever I get in that thing, Ann, I'm already having fun. And so I'll drive that to some location. I've got my computer and then I go work. And so I think a big thing is keeping it fun. And
Mm.
another thing is
That's right.
you stay with your deadlines. And if you don't have deadlines, because let's say you're writing something on speculation, you're hoping somebody will buy it. Well, then you create your own deadlines.
That's
Uh, you've got to do that. And then the other thing that I do is I keep my eye on that end goal, not so much of the completed book. What I'm looking at is I'm picturing the target market that I'm writing for. I'm picturing those kids,
yes.
and I'm picturing how they'll react to the story and how the life truths can help them in their experience journey and to gain wisdom. And so, uh, when I know that they're going to love the story, that just fuels me on to be writing. And I pray. I have to admit, I pray. There'll be times where I don't have the motivation, and I just pray, God help me with this, or I'll take a 2-mile walk. Generally, that's the thing. Uh, all these good things can happen in a 2-mile walk. And so I'll get on a walk and I'll pray and ask God to give me an idea if I'm stuck or
Yeah.
whatever. And,
And I hope he keeps, honest, like, I really hope he keeps giving you that idea to keep going, because this is amazing. Finally, before I let you go, what was the most proudest moment of your life that brought you so much joy when you look at the kids that you've mentored?
I think it's the fact that um, they made their own decision that they wanted to walk with God too and embrace the Christian faith, and to see them actually doing it. I think that's it. To say that I'm really proud of. They could have done 100 different occupations and I'd have been proud. But it's that core stuff. It's their heart, where they wanted to be in life, and um, and I don't want to credit myself so much, but that says a lot about, I think, certainly my wife and what they saw at home and God's work in life. So yeah, that was very that brought joy.
Tim, I'm really amazed with your work. I can't thank you so much for this conversation. I mean, your work with kids is phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
And it's been great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.